Hey, yes, welcome back, everybody, once again to Tips from the Server Room. This is episode number 130 for April the 14th, 2018. Once again, I'm your host, Jack, and I'm going to help guide you into, through, and back out of the world of systems administration, network administration, and all fields of IT. Please check out my website if you have a minute, and I hope that you do. That is at tipsfromtheserverroom.com. You can comment on these shows, and you can also leave me some feedback, and I always appreciate that and those efforts on your part. If you have any questions or ideas for future shows, please email me, and you can email me at jack@tipsfromtheserverroom.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, and many of you have done that, and you still do that, and I appreciate you following me on Twitter, and as at Technoman. Please remember that these shows are also recorded into a video, and that video is posted on my YouTube site at 42Technoman. The number 4, the number 2, Technoman. You can also search for Jack's Tech Corner, and I believe you'll find the videos just fine there. And I did actually create a playlist for Tips from the Server Room, so it's very easy to find all of the videos. I had somebody email me a few weeks ago and said, look, Jack, there's a problem because I go to your channel and there's Photoshop elements videos and photography videos. And, well, I also teach photography online, and I also teach Photoshop elements online. So I've been doing that for years, even though I've been the computer guy for the past, probably 25, at least 25, almost 30 years now. In the computer business, one way or the other. And, so I kind of joined both of those together. I did at one time create separate channels, YouTube channels. And if you're a YouTuber, you'll understand that it does get a little cumbersome at best, I guess, where, you have to try to get all these different videos and shows up there and know where to post them. My primary 2 channels right now is 42Technoman or Jack's Tech Corner. And if you're a motorcycle buff, and many of you probably could be, right? You could ride motorcycles. You might want to check out my videos at Harley Day Rider. That is my YouTube channel, Harley Day Rider. I've been posting videos on there now, motorcycle videos for at least, I think I'm going into my 3rd year. So there's a ton of video content on there if you'd like to watch that about riding and trips that we've done. We took a trip last summer out to Wyoming, out through Sturgis, South Dakota, the Badlands. There's a ton of videos on there you might want to watch. They're very entertaining. And I have to tell my wife, it's funny because when you do a video such as this, or, you do a podcast based around information, learning, something people need to know, they tend to do extremely less views, extremely, let's say even more poor than the entertainment type videos I do with the motorcycle videos. So just can't get this mic to sit right today. I don't know what this is here, but yeah, so they tend to do less, and I believe more and more people watch YouTube for entertainment purposes. And it's funny now because when somebody comes over, she goes, hey, have Jack tell you about, how his training videos do, his Photoshop videos, as opposed to his motorcycle videos. And the motorcycle videos, as far as total views, always wins out. And it's funny with the YouTube channels because the 42Technoman has over 20,000 subscribers, but then you'll get you might get 100 views on some of them. And it's funny because some of them have, 100,000 views on some of my videos on YouTube, but you only have 20,000 subscribers. So I don't know how you relate subscribers to views, or, and I don't know if people want to be entertained, and I can't really take Tips from the Server Room and make it entertaining as far as I'm not going to tell jokes or some corny stuff about servers and networks and switches. It just doesn't make good quality sense to me to do that. So let me first start out, and I forgot to put this in my show notes. Google started, and I heard this actually on another podcast, and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. Google started an IT course. An IT, it looks like it's so far, I would say it's like an associate's level course. But it's concerning all things IT. And, I have my Windows Server courses, of course, that I teach, and that is just strictly about Windows Server and the certain version I teach. But the course that they are teaching, we started out with, the history of computing. Of course, you have to start with the history before you go forward. And then we started with software. Well, no. Then we started with components. I'll back up a minute. Then we started with before that, we even had binary code, how to convert binary to digital numbers or decimal numbers. So it's been extremely good. It's been a great course so far. The course will last you 8 to 12 months, depending on how hard you hit the lessons. That's going to be the big thing on your part. But search for it. It's Google IT. What is it? Google IT. You know what? As I'm talking here, we're going to look this up real quick to be sure what it's called. Google IT. It's Google IT Support Professional Certificate is what it's called. And they teach it with a company called Coursera, Coursera. But if you first go to Google's website, let me see here. But there's a catch. I don't know what this one is either. I meant to read that. So anyway, the thing is, there's definitely a great way to get involved with this course. And I was fortunate enough or lucky enough to actually be able to do this. They do offer a scholarship. And the scholarships are based around not really a whole lot because they don't really ask you a lot of your financial information. They don't ask you to fill out like a FAFSA report here, with the government to see if you can get government money or anything. What they're doing is just looking who you are, basically why you want to take the course and how you think this course will advance you in life or in a career. So I thought, it never hurts. And I tell you folks out there, it never hurts to take more and more training. And even though, my lifetime and going through college years ago, it's nice to get a refresher on stuff like binary code, hardware, bus systems, and whatnot. So again, check that out, the Google IT Support Certificate, and see what you think about that. And, like I said, if you want to, by all means, subscribe or fill out the scholarship. And they do ask you to write, there's two 100 and a minimum 150 word essays. You got not really an essay. You have to write basically up. The first one you have to write up is why you believe that you're eligible for a free course. And the next one would be 150 words of how's this going to advance you in life. But once you complete the courses, and this is good for a lot of folks out there just getting into technology, once you complete these courses and say you don't know which way to turn and you don't know if you want to go back to a full-time college for this, Google actually has certain companies out there that will work with you to place you in a job in many, many, many different cities around the United States. And I don't know around the world, but so far seeing the students in there are students in there from all over the world. So something to check out. It's very interesting so far. And, it never hurts to have more training. You guys know that, like I said, I teach Windows Server online at jtclearning.com. And I've been doing that for years. I've been teaching, in-class stuff, about networking and switches for years. But it's always good to get refreshed. So with that said, let's talk a little bit today. We're going to start our conversation today about network documentation. Now, as a technologist or as a technician, none of us, or even as a network administrator, none of us really can say 100%. You can't tell me, and don't sit out there shaking your head and say, yeah, Jack, I can. You cannot tell me that you love documentation. The world of computing and the world of network administration and the world of server administration is all about doing, right? We are the doers. We're people that want to go in there, correct the issues, correct the problems, and we want to take care of something and fix it. We don't always want to sit down and document it. And one of the folks I work with actually last week, I was talking to the one person, and I said, she was saying something about how she forgot from last year what she did to recreate it this year. And I said, well, do you document anything? And she looked at me and said, I don't have time for documentation. But what you will find, and what's funny about this whole thing is people say they don't have time for documentation, but then they have time to waste 4 hours trying to figure it out again. If you took an hour and documented it when you did it, and then when you go to redo that same task, guess what? Now you just saved 4 hours of heartache and hardship trying to figure it out again. All you gotta do is look back at your documentation. Now, there's some really great documenting tools out there. And the first one, a lot of you know, and as I'm doing these show notes today from, is my old buddy Evernote. I've been using Evernote since I met these people at a conference when they were just a small team. I think there was maybe 3 programmers starting this thing. And now I'm sure they're very big, very large company. But, it was a very infant type project. It was, there was not much to it at that time more than basically a notepad with a database backend. And it would kind of, keep your notes. And now it really grew into something fantastic. And Evernote, and they're not a sponsor to the show, folks. I only promote things on this show that I use. Stuff that I use, stuff that I understand, and things that I can tell you that either A, they work, or B, they're awful, right? So, but Evernote, I find that I can go in there and I basically create notebooks. And in those notebooks, such as at the school, I'll have a notebook called Network Switches. And in Network Switches, I'll have everything in there I need to know about programming the switches, updating the switches, updating their ISOs, and doing all that work with the switches, even programming VLANs. And then what I do is when I put something in there, I'll simply give it a tag as switch. So that way I can just search in my Evernotes for a tag called switch, and I get every note no matter where it is in Evernote. So that's a great, great tool to have. So Evernote does work. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, Jack, Evernote used to be free across any device. And that's true. But, as a company business model, you think of your company. If you gave your services away free across the board to everyone, how long would you be in business, right? You wouldn't be in business very long. So Evernote changed their business structure and said, look, the free version, you can sync it between 2 devices. And you pick whichever 2. They don't care. It could be an iPad and your desktop and your laptop maybe your phone. And they allow you to do that perfectly well for free. But I pay for, I think mine's called the basic version. I bought the premium version the first year I paid for it for whatever that was, $80 or $90 for the year. And I didn't seem to use all the features. So I said, look, the following year I put it on my calendar and I scaled back to the basic version. The basic version, I think I might pay like $39 a year. But this way, I'm giving the company money for development. I use their tool every single day. It's always open on my computer. No matter which computer I'm using, I have it open. And it allows me to sync between all those different devices. Now, there is a way, and I'm going to tell you there's a way to use the free version across all your devices. All you have to do is simply access Evernote through the website. And their website has become extremely good. I was shocked how great, and I'll tell you a little bit about that further in the show today, but I was super shocked how great that their Evernote web client is almost identical to the desktop as functionality, and it works really, really well. So you do have that option, but I do like all the apps. I like the iPhone app, the iPad app, Android app. Well, the Android app is so-so. I did play with that last week. All right, I'm not a big Android guy. A lot of you know that. I lean more towards the Apple realm and the Windows realm and the Chrome OS realm, but I don't do a whole lot of Android stuff. So I had a chance to play with it a little bit, and I found it to be a little quirky, a little bit more quirky, I guess, than even the iPad version. The iPad version works pretty well. So that's one route that you can take. Now, if you are, I don't even think you have to be now. I don't think you have to be an Office 365 subscriber to use OneNote. OneNote is basically a Evernote competitor, and Microsoft created OneNote, and people swear by it. We have techs that we work with, and we have system engineers that we work with. Our company primarily is a Microsoft shop, Microsoft 365 and all the tools. So they are very in touch with OneNote, and they love it. It works very well. I played with it a little while when I was thinking of getting rid of Evernote, and I was thinking, look, I'm going to get rid of Evernote, and I'm going to just go ahead and start using OneNote because it's free, and I can use it across all my devices. But there's that thing called the learning curve. And when you have to learn something, or when you have to work with a learning curve, what tends to happen is you lose productivity time. And I don't like to lose productivity time trying to fumble with notes. Maybe if I started with OneNote years ago when it started, or however long it, maybe, when did it come along? 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 at the tops. If I would have started with it and maybe never used Evernote and how Evernote functions, my whole life is in Evernote for years. I got stuff in here from years ago. And yes, I probably need to do some house cleaning, but it's cool to go back and look at some of those notes you wrote up. Like when I was a programmer, all my programming notes are in there. So if I ever want to go back to programming, I have a lot of my code in Evernote. So I can go back and pull out snippets of code that I may need to reuse. And that's why I hate to delete that kind of stuff. But OneNote is a tool. It's a good tool. There's a web-based version. There is pretty much a client from everything I've seen that works on every device that you would have. So it's another great documenting tool for network documentation. Now, the next thing we want to talk about or touch upon a little bit is spreadsheets. And spreadsheets kind of go into the fact of the same part of networking, or now we're talking about network documentation. I'm not really at this point talking about server documentation, database documentation, workflow documentation. We started doing a lot of that at work now, documenting all of our workflows. And it has streamlined our life. And we talked about that in a past show one day. And I told you that it's actually produced a better team because now we have just a quick set standards way to do things. We don't have to fumble around and go from step 1 to step 8 to step 3 to step 7 back to step 2. We just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and we're done. It's block diagrams, it's a piece of cake. So network documentation or network switches we're talking about right now, or your MDFs and your IDFs, right? So on this networking gear, we have many ports. We have many VLANs. You can have a lot of stacks of switches, folks. And I don't know how many stacks you have. Our normal stack at the school levels is no more than 2, which gives us, what is that? That's 96 ports. Yeah, 48. Oh, yeah, 96 ports is our normal stack. Some companies may stack, and have 6,000-7,000 ports, depending on what you may need in your business. But when you walk in there and, if you have everything VLANed out, now if everything's a flat network, you can just plug in anywhere and it's going to work just fine. But if you're VLANed out and you have your virtual LAN set up on different ports, or you have different ports, that's programmed for nothing, a lot of times I like to shut ports down that's not being used, and that way I bring them up when I need them. But what I did was I took a spreadsheet and on the first column, write every port down you have. So on ours with Extreme Networking, or even with Cisco, you would do like 1:1, 1:2, 1:3, 1:4 for all your ports going down. And then the very next column have in there what patch it goes to on your switch panel. And I know you can always grab the wire and you can follow the wire up and see where it plugs into, but that's not the way to do things. The reason we want to document is if you are going to work and, we pray that this never happens, you get hit by a train on the way to work. We want somebody to pick up your documentation, and we want somebody to be able to look at that documentation and go, oh, okay, well, oh man, he did a nice job, or she did a nice job. Here's port, we have a printer that's not getting a networking connection. We look at the sheet and find out that printer's wall jack is connected to port, 1:9. We can go and we can even tell what switch that's on because I have each individual switch on a separate spreadsheet, all created into one book. So if you've ever used Excel, there's basically one spreadsheet is a spreadsheet. Multiple spreadsheets can be considered an Excel book, right? Because you have multiple pages. And each page is the name of the switch. Now, with that name, put in there the IP address. I find this to be very useful because if I'm going to SSH into that switch, I now have the IP. I don't have to fumble around and try to figure out what the IP is. It works very, very well, and I can tell you there's a little trick to this. So if you have your laptop and you have a spreadsheet program, let's say you're using LibreOffice, for instance. Maybe you like LibreOffice. Many people do, and it's a great program. I haven't used it for years. I'm sure it's even better than when I used it. So you have LibreOffice Sheets or whatever, you have it open, and that's what you're using. That's fine. It'll work fine. What I'm not sure about Libre Sheets from LibreOffice is, are those sheets available online? And the reason I ask that is I tend to use, believe it or not, being an Apple kind of guy, I use Numbers from Apple. Apple has a program called Numbers. That program is very nice because I have it on my iPad, on my phone, and again on the computer and the web interface. There's a web interface for the iApps, the iCloud apps. And my workflow just works very well with that app. It will also work if you're using Microsoft Excel because you have Office 365 on the web, which it will be there. You have a client for pretty much any operating system you want to use it on, Windows or Mac. And you can also have that on your iPad, and you can also have the Excel on your either your iOS device or Android device as far as that goes. This is very nice because the other day I walked into one of our closets and I was thinking, oh man, I didn't bring my laptop over. How can I find this patch? And I thought, wait, I always have my phone on me. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and I brought up my spreadsheet on my phone. It's a smaller screen, but it worked. I walked across to the page I needed for that particular closet, opened it, found the port number and said, oh, that's where it's plugged into right there. And I found exactly where I was. So without having your computer with you, if you have your phone, then you're good to go. If you're using one of the sheet programs or Excel or accounting I don't know what you would refer to that as. But if you're using one of those programs, you have a way to carry that around with you. And it just makes total sense to do that. So have on there, like I said, your port number. The next thing we have on there is the patch number. So when we're in the room, we see the patch is labeled. And I hope you're labeling everything in your network. When we started in the school that I'm in now, things were labeled on the wall jacks, and a lot of times they weren't labeled in the rack. So that kind of throws you off a little bit. Sometimes they were labeled on the wall jack, and it was labeled wrong in the switch rack. So you have to get everything consistent labeled. But then when you go to your switch rack and you say, oh, there it is, port number, whatever. Our ports are like V for voice, D for data, C for cameras, and I think that's it. D, pretty sure that's it. No, and S for security, because there's security door locks and whatnot. So we have those. So say it's V29. I'm going to say V29 goes to that port of the switch. So I know that should be on the phone VLAN. Very simple to do, but you have to document. It took me when I started at the school a year and a half ago, my current assignment where I'm located at now, it took almost a year to get everything to the point where I was comfortable knowing where everything was plugged in at. And you still find wires because as a network person, and I always say, every networking out there does things to make things work. We are solution providers. That's what we do for a living. Sometimes you'll find people will, for whatever reason, have a network cable that's not quite long enough to where they want to go. So they take a little 5-port unmanaged switch, they'll plug it in up in the ceiling, and then what they'll do is they'll come down into that switch, in that little 5-port switch, and they'll jump that. So they'll make an extension from that. So it's, people do weird things. But you have to figure that out. It's going to take you a while in your network. And if you do have that, document it somewhere. Because if that train hits you on the way to work, you want somebody to know where that switch is. You don't want to get rid of that. So, all right. The drawings part of it, drawing, it all depends what kind of camp you're in. The Visio camp, which I tend to use Visio now because we have the ESS agreement for our school district, so I can get Visio as part of our volume licensing, and I can use Visio legally that way. I used to be a big fan for years of SmartDraw. SmartDraw got to the point now where it's kind of outpriced itself, and I can't really have the school district pay for it, even though I think it's a easier program to use because I'm more familiar with it. That's all it is. I'm not super familiar with Visio, but Visio works for some network drawings. When you have your drawings, don't have a fiber cable going from an IDF to your MDF and just show it's connected to the MDF, because that's not going to tell you anything. And basically what I'm saying is, so you have, a picture of your MDF, and then you have a picture of your IDF, your 1 or 10 gig fibers coming across, and it's going, it's going back to the MDF. That's a technology thing. We know where it goes. Show me on the core switch what port it's plugged into. That's the key, because if I need to do anything with that fiber, I need what port it's in. I don't need to know that it plugs into that box. That doesn't make any sense. So make sure you label stuff like that. It's very, very critical to do that. The drawings, as far as like if a cable's going from your IDF to one of your rooms or one of your offices, you could put in there what port it's going to, but also you'll have your spreadsheet to follow up on the back end of that. So, always document your network. And I listened to a guy not long ago. I can't recall his name, and I'm sorry about that. But he told me what he likes to do, what he likes to do is very simply, he really likes to take spreadsheets of that nature, and if he has time, put them at the IDF or put them at the MDF on your wiring closet, on the wall. Because like he said, and I never really thought about this, if you have a phone guy come in, say you have a phone guy come in or somebody come in for a network, an internet connection, or they don't know where they're plugged into, it'd be really nice if you're not available to have that information there for that person. And they can say, wow, there's really a networking person here that really cares about other networking people. Very, very important. But you will have people, and I've met people over my life that will not document, because if I document it, they can fire me tomorrow and somebody can take all my work that I did, and then they don't have to do it themselves. You know what? That's a lot of BS. If a company is going to fire you, they are going to fire you. They don't care what you have. They don't care what you did. And you know what? That's just life, right? That's just life. Or if you're going to get laid off, that's happened to me where, I've done all this work. I created all this stuff. A company came in and said, we could do it cheaper than he can do it. And somebody believed them, because somebody believed their BS, and they took them on. And what happened was they found out now that they're paying them $200,000 more a year than what they paid an in-house staff. That's kind of funny. Karma will always kick in the ass. That's what they say. But they had all of our documentation. We did all the hard work over many, many years, over 13 years. We did the hard work. Then somebody will walk in and just take over your role and you'll be gone. So don't ever think I'm not going to document because somebody will take my job. It doesn't really matter. When I took over a job years ago, I walked into a place where there was a technologist that was let go because he wasn't doing a good job. And I said, did anybody ask the person for the passwords? And they told me no. So I had to go in and recreate the Windows servers and, dig around and crack passwords, and anything can be done. So don't ever secure a network thinking they're going to let you go and you're going to get back at them, because forget it. It's not going to happen. Hey, real quick, I want to let you know that my official week ended with the Chromebook experience. The Chromebook I was using, and if you go over to jackstechcorner.com, I have every day in there listed what I did with the Chromebook, what I found was interesting with it, what I found that was very helpful. But as a technology director, network administrator, could you use a Chromebook only for your tasks? And to be honest with you, as much as I've seen, absolutely you could. It's not a big deal. I would recommend, if you do buy a Chromebook, to buy one of the mid-range ones. The one I've been looking at, if I bought one, would be the Asus. I think it's the 302CA, I think is what it's called. Either that one, or a lot of people say the Samsung mid-range Chromebook for like $480. I don't know the model number. They also say that's a very good one. And the reason I say is because after using the Chromebook, the Dell 3380 for a week, I noticed that the screen was not as clear as I would like it to be. And I spent a lot of time looking at the screen, obviously, because I used it every single day. I did hook it to an external monitor, which the monitors always looked really brilliant and nice, so the resolution it can pump out is good. But naturally, when you buy something cheaper, they got to cut price somewhere, so you lose on the screen resolution for the laptop itself. The next part, sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. The next part was the keyboards. The keyboards are the same way. So the keyboard was kind of like bangy or squishy or whatever you want to say. It wasn't nice and solid. There wasn't nice travel. But again, you're looking at a more inexpensive Chromebook. So anyway, with that said, the experiment for the Chromebook for the week was really, really good. I did find a program that was cool because I was looking for a program where I have a USB to serial connector, and I know many of you guys out there probably have one of those. And I plugged it in the Chromebook and I thought, how can I get a driver to use this thing? Well, there is a program out there called Beagle Term, like the dog, Beagle Term. And Beagle Term is basically a Chrome extension that opens up in the Chrome browser, and it interacts with your hardware. So I was able to click on the USB connection. I hit my firewall, boom, I was in serial connection, and it works absolutely flawlessly. So look that up, Beagle Term. It's a great, great program. It will also work on any device, as far as I've seen, because I have used it on my Mac laptop as well as a Windows laptop. So it does work on any device. It's a great program there. The Chromebook, as I said, if you look at jackstechcorner.com, you will find that and I think I talked about this a little bit last week, but the adding of the Android applications on there, I told my wife that they just changed the entire landscape of the Chromebook. They just made the Chromebook a laptop, and it's a very inexpensive laptop. And I have to say, and you guys know that I teach Microsoft. I teach, all this Windows Server stuff. I teach Microsoft Office at work. And I'm also a Mac guy, and I love my Macs for all my creation, my creative self, my Mac stuff, right? Such as this podcast and the video that I'm creating. All my YouTube videos for my motorcycle videos are created on my Macs. So for creativity and even professional work, I do like the Mac. It works very, very well. But for an inexpensive Chromebook, guys, look out, because Google is coming for you. Google is coming directly at Microsoft, and they're coming directly at Apple. I don't think they're coming after the hardware manufacturers, because they bundled those hardware manufacturers in. Because you could buy HP Chromebooks, Dell Chromebooks, Lenovo Chromebooks. Every manufacturer out there is building a Chromebook. Samsung is even in the game. So they're not going after the hardware people, but they are doing what Bill Gates did back in the 70s, the 80s, right in that area, where, he went to IBM and said, look, I'll license this to you. You put on your hardware, and he made billions, right? So it's something to think about. There is some little quirky things with the Chromebook that I didn't like. One is if you want to do any video editing, I was going to buy one to take on my next motorcycle trip. If you want to do any video editing with a Chromebook, you're going to have to make sure you have a good internet connection. And most hotels do not. Because what happens is when you're putting your video in, it will load it locally. But if you use a program called WeVideo, and you can use that again on any computer, wevideo.com, that actually works online. So what happens is when you're doing your projects, they're getting uploaded as you're editing them. So you'd have to have a good internet connection. And I still like just basic, if I'm on the road, the basic stuff I use, I have I think it's 11.5-inch Lenovo, a very small little laptop that I throw in the motorcycle. And I'll sit in a hotel room at night and edit my videos with Movie Maker. It works. I am on the Mac. I'm kind of a Final Cut Pro guy. I like Final Cut Pro. I understand it. It's easy to use. But on Windows, I'm not going to buy any special software. I just use Movie Maker and it still works today, so that's fine. Podcasting on a Chromebook can be done. If you're doing recording, doing audio on the Chromebooks, it can be done. But my biggest experiment, honestly, the two reasons I did that was video editing, and photo editing is not the greatest at best. I mean, not what I'm used to. As I told you, I teach Photoshop Elements online. I teach Lightroom, and I've done some Photoshop work. Those programs allow me to do a lot with my photography work and my photos. So doing anything less than that is really hard for me to do. And then again, you're uploading your photos and then you're editing with like this mediocre editor on a Chromebook. But my biggest thing with the Chromebook experiment, honestly, was to see if a technologist can use it in and out every day of the week. And I believe these things will be fine for anybody to use. If you do any kind of day-to-day work, you're doing presentations, because let's face it, with the Office 365 is what I recommend to use, because the Android Word and the Android PowerPoint and Android Excel don't work as good or as half as good as what the online versions do. But with those, you can create anything you want and always have it with you. So do you need to spend, $1,200 for a Mac? Do you need to spend $1,200 for a Surface Book or a Surface Pro? Probably not. Probably not. These things are coming, man. They're coming up fast. And, but like I said, buy a quality mid-range one. All right, the last thing I have for you, this podcast is getting a little long this week, and I didn't think I'd even be this long-winded, is a tool of the week. And the tool of the week that I found, and I don't think I've ever reported this to you, is a program called from Wise Software, W-I-S-E, Wise Software, and it is their password manager, and it's absolutely free. There is a little nag screen on there, like when you first launch it, it's going to count down, I think it's 5 or 6 seconds. But what happens after that 5 or 6 seconds, it just opens up and it works. If you register it for free, they just want to know who's using their products out there. Put your email address in there, they give you the registration code, plug it in, and then it just opens. But what is nice about it, I use it all the time for bulk password changing, because we have a whole group of students, especially if you're in schools. Students will come in and maybe they all can't log in, and I have to get them in very quickly. So I can grab my whole entire OU and say, make it this password, click, boom, they're done in like 2 seconds. Absolutely fine. It also allows single password changing. So if you want to give somebody else the ability to change passwords in your organization, you can do that. And we've done that with some computer lab teachers, where we give them certain rights where they can open this application, type in Johnny's username. They can change Johnny's password, but they can't change teachers' or administrators' passwords. So it's very secure that way, and it works very, very well. It also allows you to change all the property items I found this week, because I was able to set the passwords and say never expire, or you can tell it to create a password and shut it down in 3 days, or whatever you want to do. It works very, very well. Okay, folks, so I am going to wrap this week up. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and downloading to this show. If you are watching these on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please give it a thumbs up so I know people are enjoying the videos. And it also helps to raise it in the ratings. Never hurts. Spread the word around a little bit and tell people about Tips from the Server Room, and say, hey, look, there's a podcast out there you can listen to, when you're driving to work. Or you can put the video on at lunchtime and kick back and just watch this guy named, this guy Jack, talk about different stuff about servers or networks or switches and whatever else comes along. I do appreciate all those efforts. Folks, if you want to buy anything from Amazon, and we all buy from Amazon, let's face it, we have a local mall right now getting ready to shut down at the end of this year, or the mid this year, I think, maybe June or July. The mall will be gone. I've been telling people this for years. The malls will be gone. And it's just simple math. It's just simple ways of doing things. And I did it years ago. I would go to the camera shop. I'd pick up a camera. I'd hold it. I'd look at it. And, oh, they're really nice. How much is it? $1,200. Huh. I'd come back, go online, go to B&H Photo Video in New York City, and I'd buy it online for $800. So that's why the brick and mortar stores are going away. Now, B&H Photo Video is still a brick and mortar store, but they got a high presence of online sales. just like Amazon, right? So if you buy anything from Amazon, I want you to put it in your basket, go to tipsfromtheserverroom.com, click on my link, and then go back and check out. That helps this show out because I got all these fees to pay. This hosting fee I got to keep paying, my internet fees to pump this out into your house or into your car and get this great podcast out there to you, and whatever else comes along. But all the money goes back into the equipment for the show or supporting the show's needs, and I really do appreciate you doing that and all your efforts. Thank you so much once again, and I will talk to you next week right here at Tips from the Server Room. Bye for now, everybody.